Hey, how's it going? Today we are going to play Regidrago VSTAR as like follow-up to the video I did yesterday, so check that video out after this one or whatever. This is the list that I was playing in the games. The Iron Leaves can be Gudra VSTAR. They're kind of like, that's the slot that the Gudra goes in, is where the Iron Leaves is in this one. And in the gameplay, I was playing a Collapsed over the Cleffa, but I think the Cleffa is better. The Collapse never came up, it was never useful, and Cleffa would have been far more useful. So yeah, that is the list. Let's get into the games. Alright, this is the first game, and my opponent benched all those Pokemon before starting. I chose to go first. I'm running into a lot of these aggressive decks on the ladder, so I started the Radiant Charizard. And after seeing what I'm playing against, I'm kind of glad that I did. I don't know if this is generally the best tactic because they either have to knock it out or I have to find my switch or something. But I really didn't want to give them the option to take 2 prizes on their first turn. So yeah, I used Squawkabilly, didn't find anything really useful off of that. Would have loved to find an Ogerpon and get an energy in play to start like guaranteeing an attack next turn, but I can just attach to the Drago and Iono. Hopefully find an Ogerpon energy and energy switch. That is kind of a big combination, but this is, you know, that's the nature of the deck. I got the Tina VSTAR in the discard pile, so at least have some kind of attacker. Looks like my opponent is getting a Squawkabilly of their own. Really, they should just at the end of their turn switch into their Baby Roaring Moon and not put a 2-prizer in the active and not let me get my Drago in the active, make me find a switch or Prime Catcher. But it looks like they're gonna go for the attack. I would have attached that third Dark Energy to the other Roaring Moon and just left 2 kind of set up and hope that I couldn't find a knockout or like my Prime Catcher. I do top deck Regidrago VSTAR, that is kind of good. Now I just have to decide whether to research our Iono. I burn the Canceling Cologne because it's useless in this matchup. I don't want to draw it again later. I do end up drawing a pretty good hand here. I'm thinking about what to Ultra Ball away here. Or, yeah, no, I don't know why I would Ultra Ball. I should just, yeah, Nest Ball for a Drago. Nest Ball for another Ogerpon. I don't know, I don't even need to get this second Drago, really. I think that might be a mistake. I could just get 2 Ogerpon and like Vessel away the VSTAR for 2 grass. Like get a second Ogerpon and a Mew and try and draw some cards. Yeah, there we go. Vessel away the Ultra Ball. I would have liked to have if I got the second Ogerpon there, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a mistake. I got really lucky though. I don't have to use the VSTAR. I can even draw an extra card with Mew. But yeah, my bench probably should be just 2 Ogerpon, a Mew, and the Squawkabilly right now. I didn't need to get that second Drago. This is still when I was figuring this matchup out. Now I know they're not trying to knock out my Drago VSTAR. And if they do, it's not really that big of a deal. Because like I can take this knockout with my VSTAR, take another knockout with like an Ogerpon or Iron Leaves, and take a knockout with my Radiant Charizard. The only real important thing here is that I took the first 2 prizes, so I'm in a pretty good spot. Having the Drago be on the bench to ensure that I have the option to use the VSTAR next turn is kind of nice. But I don't know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword where if I don't put down the other Drago, then they can just gouging my active and leave themselves with 30 HP. But if I do have the other Drago down, they can't really do that because I can just take a 4-prize turn on like Petron or Squawkabilly and then knock out the Roaring Moon that they put the 200 damage on. So maybe that was correct. They're getting their catchers. It's kind of important that they flip a catcher head because like I just explained, they really don't want to put damage on themselves. They choose to knock out my Drago V. I think this was a mistake. When Drago has 1 Ogerpon in play, you really want to target that down. That's kind of like the weak point of the setup. I really need that to get energy in play. It's super important right now. So they probably should have just taken that out, which is another reason I probably should have got 2 of them down. I'm just gonna Vessel for double grass here. I was thinking about only getting one grass because then I could play out my hand a little bit more and draw with Mew, but I ended up realizing that I'm probably not drawing any cards with Mew anyway. But with the Ogerpon and the Vessel, and since they didn't knock out my Ogerpon or my Drago, they didn't remove any energy from play, I am able to just easily get an Iron Leaves attack. I Super Rod the Charizard back into the deck. I was pretty unsure about this at the time, and I'm kind of unsure about it now. It's kind of like hedging my bets against them judging me or knocking out my V-Star, because with that in the discard pile, I can just use the V-Star to get it back with a Fire Energy to win the game. But kind of the way that my hand is right now, I have pretty good odds to get into game anyway, so it's kind of fine. I can just Ultra Ball and then Superior for a Fire Energy. Yeah, looks like they're thinking about attacking with the Baby Moon, which I don't think they can do. They really have no good options to win the game right here. They're in a pretty bad spot. Oh, unless they could flip a Catcher Heads onto my Mew EX, that's going to be probably the route that they're going to go to try and win. Looks like they didn't get a catcher, so should just be good to get a Ultra Ball for my Radiant Charizard and then Superior for a Fire Energy. And that just really shows how if you're able to get a one prizer into the active spot and they whiff the knockout in any way, you can just prize race them for the game and it ends up being pretty easy. And that kind of worked out perfectly here. If they had taken two prizes on the first turn, they would have won right there. But that is still why I like to choose to go first, no matter what the matchup is. Because I really don't think that there's any chance that we get a knockout going second. And going first, there's a chance that they either whiff everything to get a knockout, or they have to knock out the one prizer in the active, or they just have to leave a one prizer in their active spot, and we just kind of play a waiting game of who can gust first. But going first does kind of buy us a little bit more time, I think. Alright, so I'm up against Charizard here. I'm pretty sure of it at the time because of the Charmander sleeves and they start Fezandipiti and stuff, but not an ideal start. I use the Energy Switch because, like I said, I'm assuming I'm up against Charizard. That's probably not the best practice online because people can really use whatever kind of sleeves they want. But I do end up being right. Them starting the Fezandipiti is kind of annoying because I would really like to be able to take two prizes with Phantom Dive right here, unlike a Charmander and Pidgey or something like that. And the 210 hit points is kind of annoying, but it does leave the option to clean it up later if they are unable to get Turo. And since I am going to knock out their only Pidgey in play, I usually assume that it's going to be really hard for them to get a Turo play off. But top decking the Vessel there is pretty nice. That's what I was looking for last turn, but better late than never. Also getting into the Ultra Ball is kind of perfect. Just put the Iron Leaves in the discard pile for later. I'm really hoping to not have to use the V-Star to attack this turn, but all I really need to find is another Vessel or a Grass and a Switch or something like that. I do grab the Dragapult here, kind of hedging my bets that I'll draw a V-Star off of the research, and I do end up drawing it. I like to get the attackers in the discard pile right there because, as you can see, if I didn't do that and I just got the V-Star, I would have had no good way to get an attacker in the discard. I drew Superior plus Dragapult. I would have to use that to get it into the discard pile, and that really wouldn't be ideal. So kind of glad that I discarded that with the research. Only taking one prize here kind of sucks. Usually going for two here is the way to go, and then you can just knock out either two Charizard EXs or knock out a Rotom or a one prizer. You see how they just benched all their guys there. So usually knocking out a Rotom or bossing up their other Charmander and Pidgey or Duskull and Pidgey or something like that. But now my prize trade is kind of weird. I assumed that they were retreating that guy because they put the energy on it, but they do just end up Turoing it, so that's a little bit of a mistake from them. They should have put the energy somewhere else. But I definitely don't like to see the Turo. That is kind of unfortunate. It kind of messes up my prize trade. I need to get Prime Catcher or a boss here. And this was when I was still just playing the 2 superiors and maybe 1 Night Stretcher. I can't remember. I played so many games with this deck and like messed with the list throughout playing it. It's kind of hard to remember what I played at what points. Alright, so I do get into the Prime Catcher here. This is perfect. I can get back on even prizes. And if I bench this Regidrago V, I should have pretty good odds to get into the V-Star next turn to just get game. I Ultra Ball here for Fezandipiti because they're going to knock me out. They're probably going to Iono me low. I want to make sure that I had the most likely chance of drawing into another V-Star or just the cards that I need to win the game next turn. Now, I Prime Catcher the Rotom, so I'm going to knock out the Rotom and the Pidgey. I really should knock out the Rotom and the Duskull here. I kind of find that out the hard way. In my head, I was thinking, oh, well, there's no way that the Dusclops is going to be a problem because that only does 50 damage. Just totally forgetting that they can rare candy into a Dusknoir and knock out my Drago V-Star. This was like an early game from when the set came out, so I wasn't thinking well at all. And then right here is when I realized, oh no, I might just lose the game. Because they can knock this out, then they could counter catcher my other Drago, and that would give me pretty low odds of winning the game. I have to feed them one of my Ogerpons, which sucks. This just turns into an entire mess here. But them popping that does make it so the Radiant Charizard doesn't like affect the prize trade at all. I don't know, it's kind of a nerve-wracking turn. I messed this up. I think that they're Luminioning for boss here, but they do end up getting Iono, which makes sense. They want to try to get counter catcher. That seemed like a relief at the moment. And then I remember I'm getting Iono to 1, so I really kind of messed up there. I should have recognized that they could knock me out with that Dusclops or Duskull or whatever, and definitely knock that out over the Pidgey. But I also got rid of my Mew last turn, thinning out my hand and stuff, which kind of sucks because that could have helped me draw a lot more cards. But luckily off of the Fezandipiti, I draw a Rescue Stretcher, and now I can just get Drago V-Star, use the V-Star for either Prime Catcher or Grass and Iron Leaves. There's several options I have here to win the game. I do end up going the Iron Leaves route because I think that is kind of cool, and it makes me feel like the Iron Leaves is better in the deck. It's not just a waste of a spot. But yeah, end up taking this one pretty easily, even with hitting into a Fezandipiti turn 2 and not knocking it out and my opponent turning the damage off the board. I still think we won pretty convincingly. I also think my opponent like overbenched a little bit. It's kind of weird because the turn that they benched the Pidgey and the Duskull and all that, they kind of had to bench both of those, or else I was just going to knock out the Duskull and then they couldn't do their 4-prize turn, and then I'm guaranteed to win anyway. They could have just not benched anything and then I just knock them out with the Ogerpon and they're in a terrible spot. I don't know. This can be a pretty rough matchup for Charizard, as you can see from that game. Unfortunately though, most of the decks that beat Regidrago are becoming super popular, which has been making it a little bit harder to play, like online at least. I've been playing a ton of games with it and I have ended up beating, like in the first game I beat a kind of bad matchup. I think the Roaring Moon is like the most even of the aggro decks, but against Miraidon and Raging Bolt it can get a little rough. I think I'm about 50-50 against them though across all the games that I've played, so I don't know. Drago can definitely find ways to win games and they can whiff stuff and all that. Really good deck, a lot of fun to play. Probably the most fun deck that has been in the format in a while in my opinion. Definitely have enjoyed playing it. So check it out for yourselves and take care and have a good one.